What's going on, guys, and welcome back to 4K Motoring. I'm Chris, and I want to do a little follow-up video today on the Nissan Titan, specifically the transmission issue that we were having. So if you've experienced what we experienced in that last clip, check out and see the simple solution we did that ended up fixing all the problems in this truck. If you have a 2017, 2018, maybe even 2019 Nissan Titan at this point, you might be facing the same issues. So stay tuned and see what fixed it. So after multiple trips to the dealership dealing with this issue, kind of reoccurred multiple times throughout the early part of the year here in 2022, was a little bit troubling because it would allow you to drive at low RPMs, but anytime you tried to accelerate pretty stoutly, it would go into what evidently was a sort of limp mode. And that was brought on by some sort of weird shift the transmission had, and it was kind of a unique thing that it was a little bit different every time it happened. I did notice just about every time after I was aware of this problem, when I would start the truck, sometimes it would start a little bit slow, and like noticeably a little bit slow. So that kind of clued me into the fact that it may be a little bit of a low battery. When I would drive after that, whenever I had one of those slow start scenarios, I would drive, and whenever I tried to accelerate, the transmission would almost slip out of gear, or there would be a large bang noise from the transmission, and then it would go into this limp mode. So I took it to Nissan a couple times. The first time, there were no codes at all, and they plugged up, they did the firmware updates to the TCU and ECU in hopes that the new programming would make it possibly catch an error and be able to record it, if nothing else. Drove it for a little while after that, had no issues. They did tell me that time that the battery was a little bit low. It wasn't testing bad on their meter to the point where they could replace it under warranty, but it wasn't testing fully charged. So that was an issue I noticed there. This is the original 2018 battery for this truck. It's got about 40,000 miles on it. It's driven decently, but not all the time. It does sit around for a week or two on end, not infrequently. A couple weeks went by, I drove it again, and lo and behold, same thing happened. A slow start, a bang from the transmission, and now the limp mode sort of thing went on with the truck. This happened a couple more times. As I was told from the dealership, whenever it happened, just burying my foot in it for a little while and just hopes that eventually it throws a code so the computer can read it and they have something for the dealership. I recorded video of it, but I never saw any codes show up. There was no codes displayed, no error lights. Nothing was stored in the vehicle at all, which kind of left me a little bit puzzled. I went back to the dealership, and this time they told me that, again, there were no codes, but that battery was a little weak. I talked to the tech a little bit, just one-to-one, and he said basically what he was experiencing was the starts, when he'd press the starter button, it would sound slow to start to him, and that the battery was testing as not fully charged, but it was not bad according to their readings still. He suggested that the battery could well be the culprit for this because all these modern vehicles, Nissan's no exception, modern vehicles, when the voltage starts getting a little bit off, whether it's a dead cell, one that's not fully charged, or just, whatever is causing the voltage to be a little bit off, the electronics on these vehicles are so interdependent on each other, a little bit of voltage change can wreak havoc on the entire system. So he said it was very likely, based on what he'd seen with other Nissan vehicles, that the battery could be the cause of this. So then we came to the solution that a new battery would probably be the cheapest and most effective way to diagnose and treat the issue. The vehicle being 4 years old wasn't truly exceptional for battery, but I know my last Nissan Titan, the 2007 I had, it 8 batteries. So that's not something that's totally unique to, I guess, the second gen truck. So I realized that new battery is probably the solution for this problem, or at least a major diagnostic step that would be important. I talked to the tech about, the reasoning if theirs is testing not fully charged and it's causing issue, why it couldn't just be replaced. And apparently there's been issues with Nissan dealers just swapping out batteries and having a bad battery on hand that they can test just to give the data to Nissan to say it's bad battery, swap a new one. But there's been some issues with that, so they can't do that anymore. At least that's what this dealership told me, and they're the better one in my area. I've had some bad experiences with some other ones. And I was told basically I could keep bringing it back until it failed and keep dealing with this issue until the battery finally did get weak enough month by month to where it failed their test, or I can just buy one myself. Their batteries are fairly expensive for obviously what's not a great product, and I've always been pretty happy with the Optima batteries myself. What I ended up going with was one of these Optima yellow top batteries, and we can see our part number there, 9037-127, model number D27F. We can see our cranking amps 1025, cold cranking amps of 830, amp hours of 66. And those are kind of what I was looking for. For my trucks, I generally use the deep cycle batteries just because I know the V8 pulls a little bit more out of them and I let them sit for a while. These tend to be a little bit better on sitting for a while. Whereas in the Corvette, I've got the red top, which is just ultimate starting power and just normal usage power. So I went ahead and got the yellow top battery. I'll put a link for the battery down in the description below. This is by no means the cheapest battery for this truck. And I'll say that again, this is by no means the cheapest battery for this truck. Ironically, it's not much different than the Nissan battery at the dealership, but there are cheaper options for this vehicle if you just need a battery because you're having this issue. With all the additional lights and everything I have on this vehicle, all the added electronics, I definitely went with the bigger battery, and I'm happy I did. I can definitely say now, several months later, having driven the truck a few thousand miles, I've had no more issues with the transmission, no more rough starts, no more hard starts, no more limp mode of any sort. So I think the decision I came to with talking with the tech was the right decision. I think this 2018 truck with this original battery at 40,000 miles here in early 2022, the issues it was having were all because of this battery. And just to show what it sounds like starting up now, you guys might be kind of on the fence with where yours is at, and these slow starts I didn't really notice most of the time. Sometimes I'd notice it was very hard to start, but apparently the tech said every time it was starting he could tell it was slow. So here's what mine starts like now, just for comparison. So that's the starting speed that evidently these should have. This is a fully charged battery, this is a new battery, and the truck has been running just fine like this. Again, I really don't know what sort of voltage level it takes to make the truck act weird, but evidently whatever it was related purely to the battery, at least in my case. If you guys are experiencing any similar issues with your Titans, or probably any modern truck for that matter, if it's doing some weird things, not throwing codes necessarily, but just some intermittent things as the battery gets 4 or 5 years on it, it's probably related to the battery. These electronic systems in these new vehicles are very dependent on a proper voltage load and proper, basically, battery setup. If you guys are experiencing any of these issues, make sure you get that swapped out. The Optima has been great, but I'm sure there's a lot of cheaper options you can find. On the forums, I know a lot of people said they've had the transmission switched out and the torque converter switched out and a lot of other things for experiencing similar issues. I don't know why that is, because clearly this one battery thing is a lot cheaper and it seems to fix the issue. If nothing else, it's a great diagnostic step to move forward to the next part. Hope you guys found this video useful. Hope you guys found this information helpful. If you have any comments or if you've experienced similar issues, let me know down below. Let me know if you've changed the battery or done something different that has fixed the issue. If you guys have had other issues that have been caused by low battery, I'd love to hear about them just so people are more aware of what the symptoms might be that a simple new battery would fix. As always, thanks for watching 4K Motoring. I'm Chris, and we'll see you next time.